that. It's not for lack of interest, but because of that obligation. I thank you, General Lynch, for your testimony, and I yield back.
Chair thanks the gentlewoman and recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Issa, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. General Lynch, you and I work together on a myriad of issues, and I have great respect for many parts of the work you do and the way you do it. So I'm going to take a tack that maybe is more appropriate to my own district and to the men and women there who are asking certain questions. And I'll run you through some quick questions, and it's really for them to understand. You're obviously a skilled attorney. You took an oath. You're under a penalty of perjury as you speak today. You prepared for today so that you'd be able to answer some of the critical questions, including obviously the ones you've been asked so far. Is that correct?
I try and be responsive to the committee's questions, and I appreciate the information that staffers provide about what's of interest to the committee so that we can have the information for you.
So in that preparation, and you've got my old friend Peter Kazik behind you, you prepared to answer questions more or less in about 4 ways. Yes, no, I don't know, or I can't answer, or in some cases some combination of that. That's pretty much how you answer here, is affirmatively yes, affirmatively no, or these shades of gray in between, correct?
Congressman, I'm not going to go into the internal discussions I have.
No, I'm not asking for the internal, but
and
the character
of
questions.
My responses in that way.
So far today, you have rarely said absolutely yes or absolutely no, correct? You've mostly talked in terms of I can't answer that, or it's not appropriate, or see the FBI director. And so in light of that, and this is really a question of what do I tell the Marines, the sailors, Army personnel in my district, the veterans, the contractors, all those who work for the government with classified information. The former Secretary of State, in an unambiguous way, said repeatedly, both under oath and to the public, time and time again, I did not send or receive any information marked classified. And you're aware of that she had definitively said this repeatedly, right?
I believe her statements are on the record, and I defer you to that.
And I have referred to that. She unambiguously said something which was not true, according to the FBI director. So when you send and receive documents that are marked classified clearly, and according to her statement, 300 people have seen her email. Some portion of those people saw the ones that said secret, top secret, confidential, whatever. None of them are charged. What do I say to the tens of thousands of people that live and work in my district, that work for the federal government, including more than 47,000 Marines? What do I say when, in fact, saying something that isn't true, handling classified information in an extremely careless way, has no criminal ramifications? What do I say to them? How do I reconcile the fact that they know that their friends and colleagues have been prosecuted or fired for doing less in the past?
Congressman, I can't speak to any cases you may be referring to involving friends or colleagues. Again, I would refer you to the description that
I appreciate
provided
that,
about
Madam General, but I've got to ask you a question.
That follow this similar fact pattern. That is what I think we focus on.
Okay, let me go through.
Every case is different.
Every case is different.
Has to be handled in the same way. Every individual, whether they are former secretary,
so there will be some cases
has to be reviewed.
Madam General, I have very limited
facts
time.
And the law there.
General Lynch, you keep mentioning this professional team of career professionals. Were there any political appointees on that team? Any people who, in fact, did not work for the State Department, or did not work for the U.S. Attorney's Office prior to President Obama coming into office?
Well, again, with respect to the team, typically we don't go into the composition of it. It was led by our National Security Division, and everyone on the team was a career individual.
Again, I'll ask the question with specificity. I'm not asking for names. Was there at least one person who was politically appointed that was on that team?
The investigative team was composed of career prosecutors and seasoned agents.
The question is, was there at least one that did not work a career, that was in fact an appointee, either confirmed or unconfirmed?
Congressman, I've replied to you as to the composition of the team, that
Okay.
all of them,
So your answer is no. There were no political
all of
appointees.
them were career lawyers as well as seasoned investigators.
Okay. I'll take that as a no, because that's the only way I can interpret what you keep repeating. So, last but not least, the American people are told that these documents were not a crime to carelessly deal with. Should I find a way to make sure that those thousands of documents are made public so the American people can evaluate just how insignificant they are, or how President Obama said there's classified and then there's classified? Are these documents that could be easily made available to the public, or are they too sensitive to be made to the public today?
Congressman, you may take the appropriate steps in terms of reviewing anything, and you may make requests for that, and we'll work to accommodate you with respect to that. I don't have an answer for you beyond that.
So you couldn't
of
today.
documents in
You
this
today
case.
you could not characterize whether any or all of those documents would have to be retained privately because they're too sensitive to be made public.
The time of the gentleman has expired. The witness will be permitted to answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the handling of any of the documents or emails in this matter, because they involve another agency, we would have to work with the other agency. We always work with the agency that is termed the owner of information. So on behalf of the Department of Justice, I would not be able to give you an answer at this time as to those documents, because it would involve other agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Cohen, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Attorney General Lynch, when you appeared last time before this committee, I brought up the case of Darrell Stewart. Darrell Stewart was a young man, 19 years old, who was shot to death by a Memphis police officer. He was a passenger in a car. The officer stopped the car for a headlight violation and ran a check on the passenger, ended up getting in the back seat. The officer shot him, killed him. Our local prosecutor asked the grand jury to indict for manslaughter, but the grand jury didn't for some reason. I asked the Department of Justice to investigate, and I'm grateful for that. We are eager to know the results of your investigation. We need to know if there are any civil rights violations. Can you please tell us when we might expect any results in that case? I read today in the Times about the Garner case. I know it's difficult, but this case is one that's in Memphis with Darrell Stewart.
Yes, thank you for raising this important issue. The matter is still under review, so I'm not able to give you either a result or a timetable at this time, but of course we will work to keep you informed.
Thank you very much. Last week we saw more disturbing videos of police shooting of African Americans, and we saw police officers killed in Dallas, and that was dreadful. The other side has made a point, my friends, to say people should know that nobody's above the law and all people are treated equally. Unfortunately, what we've seen is that African Americans are not treated equally when it comes to deadly force and police officers in this country. And that's a more chilling reality than anything else that's been brought up here today. People's lives have been taken. This is a great problem. Black lives matter. Congressman Lacey Clay and I put forward a bill last year, the Police Training and Independent Review Act, H.R. 2302, to address two of the major issues that we have been identified as necessary to help improve the relationship of police and citizens. The bill would withhold a portion of federal funding unless police are trained on a range of important issues like racial and ethnic bias and cultural diversity. I know the DOJ recently announced it will train all its office agents to recognize implicit bias, so I know you're aware of the need of training. Our bill would also withhold a portion of federal funding unless police shootings that result in a death or injury are investigated and, if necessary, prosecuted independently. Asking a local prosecutor to investigate the same law enforcement agency they work with and provide them with witnesses is implicitly wrong. Like Caesar's wife, an individual should be a prosecutor beyond the appearance of impropriety. If a prosecutor does everything right, the action can still appear biased. If we're serious about restoring the sense of trust that we need to have with our citizenry, we need to eliminate this conflict of interest. As I know, as you've mentioned, a key part of President Obama's task force on 21st century policing calls for independent prosecutors. Campaign Zero, gaining a lot of credibility, also has called for the passage of this act. Congressman Clay and I have seen a surge of support. We now have 77 co-sponsors, has been endorsed by as unlikely a team maybe as the NAACP and the Chicago Tribune. Do you think that additional training for police and the use of independent prosecutors would help reduce violence between police and civilians and help restore a sense of trust in law enforcement?
Well, thank you for raising this important issue, Congressman. I think that the issue of the training that we at the Department of Justice provide for law enforcement, as well as the training generated in the field, is of utmost importance. I will tell you that as I have, in fact, traveled the country on my community policing tour, highlighting departments that are working on this very issue, I've seen some outstanding examples, in particular of de-escalation training, using various scenarios to start literally with the mindset of the officer and how they respond to certain situations. I've also been extremely encouraged by seeing law enforcement comment on many of the recent incidents that have been captured on video and talk about how training would or would not relate to those specific incidents. And I've been incredibly heartened by the growing sense of importance this issue has taken on within law enforcement itself. We have seen a number of, as I mentioned, of very, very positive programs involving training. We've seen, as I mentioned, not just the de-escalation, but also training in the issues about the definitions of excessive force, the legal standards for excessive force. I've seen programs that break that down for officers, where we have seen results in those communities.
So do you think training is something additional training will be important?
It is key.
And would independent prosecutors be a good thing?
I believe it depends upon the nature of the office that would be looking into the matter. I believe that you would need individuals who have experience in dealing with complicated cases, who have experience in dealing with forensic evidence, and certainly you'd want those offices, wherever they be located, to have that kind of expertise at their hands as well.
And let me close, Mr. Chairman, with one other fact. I don't know if you're aware, but in Memphis, a group, partially Black Lives Matter, had a protest march on Sunday. They interfered with traffic, made their demonstration on I-40 at the Hernando de Soto Bridge crossing the river. Our interim police director, Rawlings, marched arm in arm with them, saw to it that there was no violence, no arrests, no shootings, no use of force. He showed a kind of policing we need in this country, where both the protesters and all the citizenry and the police saw this man as a leader, a hero, and somebody who kept the calm and the peace in Memphis, Tennessee.
Time of the gentleman has expired, but the witness will be permitted to respond if she chooses to do so.
Just to acknowledge, indeed, the strong leadership of the Memphis Police Chief, which I've seen replicated in departments across the country, including particularly in Dallas.
The chair recognizes the